Okay. I think we're good. Okay. Okay, so thank you for joining us. We're going to have a little astrological lowdown on what's coming up for 2021 in a minute from Florence Devereaux of Astrology for the Curious, who blends her traditional training, blends her training in comparative philosophy and religion, Jungian theory, and many different astrological approaches with her fine art obsession for through expansive and aesthetically juicy astrological insight. Aesthetically juicy. I'm very excited. I'm just going to welcome Flo in now. Hi, Flo.
Hi, Kat. Thanks for having me.
You're looking so fabulous.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I thought I'd put on a little dress.
I'm really excited for this. Okay, I'm gonna let you take it away. I'm gonna go.
Okay.
See you in a minute.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Flo from Astrology for the Curious, and I am going to be speaking to you today for the next 20 minutes or so about the astrological energies coming up for 2021. Just to say, if you've got any questions as we go through this, put them in the chat, and I'll see if I've got some time at the end to answer them as best as I can for you at the end of my little talk about what's coming up. So before I get into it, I want to invoke the god Mercury, the messenger of and knowledge, and I'm going to also invoke the god Thoth. I've got a little picture of him there. He's the Egyptian version of Mercury, and as in the kind of the god of the word. And like many traditions around the world, you find that the kind of cosmology, the creation story in that cosmology, so in this case the Egyptian, you have Thoth, who utters reality into existence through his sonic kind of expression and that vibration. So I'm invoking Thoth, I'm invoking Mercury to support me as I speak to you today. And also I wanted to invoke Thoth because he is said to have created the emerald tablets. I don't know if you guys have heard of the emerald tablets. I've got a little picture of it translated into English here. And the emerald tablets formed by Thoth. They are a tablet with these words, these 10 lines formed into it. They weren't etched. The words aren't etched onto the tablet. They are formed in the emerald. And it carries the secret of the universe. And this is the basis of astrology. So astrology is a tool that comes out of this knowledge that's embedded in the emerald tablet. So I thought I'd just read the first stanza of the emerald tablet so that we have a frame for what we're going to do today and talk about today. So, in the name of Thoth, I will read this. In truth and without deceit, certain and most veritable, that which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below, to accomplish the miracle of the one thing. And just as all things have come from this one thing, through the meditation of the one mind, so do all created things originate from this one thing through transformation. So that of the kind of key concept behind astrology. So what's going on the macro level corresponds to the micro level and vice versa. So what we do with astrology is we go out, we get this like bird's eye view perspective, this macro lens through charting the movement of the planets and the stars in our system to gain insight into what's going on the micro level. Here internally in our internals, but also you can track it for the kind of human story, the collective unfolding in time and space and multidimensional time as well. So today we're talking about what's coming up in 2021. We are coming to the end of one of the most, let's say, seismic years probably of our lifetime. 2020 had really one for the history books, both the astrology books and the regular history books and our personal memoirs as well. This is really a year to remember. So I think before we move into 2021 and the energies coming up, it's good just to have a little review. Where have we been? And we have been stuck in the mud, and we have been collapsing. And, you know, astrologers have been looking to this year for decades, and what we can see in the sky is this coming together of Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn in the sign of Capricorn, the sign of that governs the structure of reality, Capricorn. And, you know, Pluto, Hades, the lord of the underworld, whatever he's touching, whatever sign he's traveling through, whatever other planets Pluto is getting involved with, like, he kind of, the energy, the archetype digs down to the bottom and like sets off an atomic bomb in the root structure of whatever it touches, in order to flush up the shadow dynamics so that we can get a full spectrum experience and understanding of reality, like integrating the shadow, integrating the darkness. And so this year was really set off in on the 12th of January of 2020, when Saturn and Pluto conjunct in Capricorn. And that was actually the day that the Chinese government released, I think, the genome for the virus for COVID. And at least it was the day that it was kind of publicly broadcasted that there was this virus. And that has very much been the energy that we've been working with. So we've also had this Jupiter, which is the planet of vision, illumination, kind of bringing light, and then conjuncting Pluto, the planet of darkness and death and transformation. And those planets have come together three times this year in the sign of Capricorn. So it's like this collapsing of the institutions that we have used and constructed as humans to govern our lives, and also an exposure, Jupiter of the shadow dynamics, Pluto of those structures. So it's been like a great reckoning this year, and a year of reprioritization. So I would say, like, from the astrological perspective, the highest kind of learning of this year would be reprioritization. Like, come along and kicked our ass. So there's been a contracted energy this year, and like stripping back and stripping away, so to see what we simply need to live. But we are now coming out of that energy, and we are going to come, you know, this year has just been littered with such incredible planetary combinations, and we've still got another rock and roll combination to come that really, although it's the end of this year, it really sets us up, not only for next year, but for the next 200 years. So on the winter solstice, 2020, so the 21st of December, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got what's called the Great Conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn coming up on the 1st degrees of Aquarius. And I just think this is such beautiful poetry, like winter solstice, such an important day, and the coming of the light, the rising of the light again, and this really seismic shift. The reason that this is such an important shift is that it was actually Kepler, the famous and important astronomer, who observed what he called the cycle of the Great Mutation. And what this is when Saturn and Jupiter come together. They come together every 30 years, and for 200 years, they come together in the same element. And then after 240 years, they shift into a new element. And that is what's happening this winter. So we are moving from 240 years of Earth, Saturn, Jupiter conjunctions. Where there was one in 1981 in Libra, when Saturn and Jupiter came together in Libra, but then it like retrograded and kind of went back into the Earth signs. And now we're moving into this air period. So we are going to feel this big shift from Earth, this focus on the material, you know, the kind of what's tangible, what can you touch, into a totally sci-fi world, way more. I mean, we all know this is coming up, but it's going to we'll really start to feel it now, like the virtual reality world, moving off into space. I mean, like, I think what we can explore out there in space is going to be totally mind-blowing. And it's kind of down to all of us to direct or kind of collaborate with this air quality in its highest form. So for me, like, what is air? You know, think about air. It's the space in between stuff, and it's like things can travel very fast through air. And so it's, for me, it is connected to the sound, voice, story, information, words. So I'm thinking, like, let's reapproach how we can tell stories, and let's use our words in the most creative and highest form, and make music, and really enjoy the sci-fi world we're moving into even more and more. I think there's going to be like just so much incredible scientific exploration as well about human nature and technology. I mean, Aquarius is a very forward looking sign, and quite a technological sign. So it's going to get pretty floaty and out there, which I'm kind of looking forward to. So it's going to be like this big, fresh breath of air this December, or at the end of this month, and the end of this year. And air is an important quality for next year as well. We've got this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, but also the North Node will be in Gemini for the whole year. So what is the North Node? Okay, we could talk for hours about what the North Node is, but in a little nutshell, the North Node, the North and South Node of the Moon, you know, you've got the ecliptic of the Sun moving around the Earth with all the other planets, and then you've got the Moon's orbit, which is actually irregular, crossing over that ecliptic. And there's a point where the Moon would hypothetically ascend, move north over the ecliptic, and where it would descend. So those points are called the nodal axis, and that is a very karmic axis. And the North Node is really, what are we moving towards? What is like the evolutionary intent directing us towards? The South Node is, what are we letting go of? What are we releasing? And so next year we have that along the axis of Gemini, what we're moving towards, and Sagittarius, what we are letting go of, and probably witnessing some of the shadow sides of that sign. Okay, so this axis is a lot about truth and information and knowledge. And the invitation for next year is to like diversify our minds. And, you know, Gemini, the trickster, ruled by Mercury, it's this quicksilver energy, which in the highest form of Gemini is being able to hold a multiplicity of truths at once. Sagittarius, on the other hand, is looking for like the one truth, the synthesized truth with a capital T. There is one way. And so there's going to be this dynamic next year of like people, you know, maybe expressing that shadow Sagittarius, which is a kind of zealous proselytizing of the truth. And the invitation is to be like, well, we all have different ways of seeing the world. I can hold that paradox of that consciousness that can hold paradox. So that's an important one to remember for next year. And yeah, communication through that Gemini North Node. So how are you going to communicate in a way that can hold the multiplicity of truths? Another important energy for next year is the squaring of Neptune to the nodes. So we know that this nodal axis is the evolutionary intent of the time. And Neptune, in this square relationship, is really activating this evolutionary intent. Okay, so when you have a planet squaring the nodes like this, it's like we need to integrate, understand that archetype. And Neptune is a pretty difficult archetype to put into words. By its nature, it is slippery, and it is beyond what we can grasp with our minds. But Neptune, if I can try and put it into words, is the archetype energy in the cosmos that is really source energy. It's like the part of our consciousness that is yearning and longing to connect and feel that dance of life, the poetry of life, the like to see life as a great rich tapestry of like different threads weaving together. And so it's the planet of transcendental consciousness. Every planetary archetype has a shadow side, and the shadow side of Neptune is because it's like this moving us, or kind of connects us to this like pure vibrational field, is very ungrounded. So Neptune, fantasy, delusion, and also nihilism. Like if we don't have a Neptunian connection, we can feel that there's a total lack of meaning in our lives and in the world, which can be pretty hard to bear. So in its positive face next year, especially now until the middle of next year, we can really embrace this Neptunian archetype. And the way that I would see that is like Neptune rules music and like is the muses. So we just like move towards our art and the poetry of life and connecting spiritually, whatever that means for you. And but being aware of fantasy, delusion, and lack of boundaries as an issue to maybe work on. What else is happening next year? Okay, I'm going to bring in one other key planetary relationship for next year. There are obviously loads of other things happening, but I've just tried to bring in the key dynamics. Every month there's a lot of specific stuff going on, but another massive constant of next year, with all these smaller kind of relationships going on in front of it, this like background noise of next year, is also defined by the Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. So as I've said, square aspects are like tense. It's a 90-degree angle, and it's like there's a bit of a battle when planets connected in this way. There's a battle that's highly creative. So I love squares because it's like we have to apply ourselves and find a way to bring those seemingly contradictory energies together. And next year we have Saturn, the planet of tradition. Saturn is Father Time, like what has stood the test of time. So Saturn is carrying the old structures in square with Uranus, the divine disruptor, the trickster, Uranus has this divine discontent that wants, and that archetype is the part of us that wants to rip up the old and smash down the institutions and reconfigure everything in a way more vibrant and fresh way. So this square that's going to be going on for the whole of next year, I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of social unrest. This year's been really stagnant. We've been stuck. It's like having to come very close into ourselves again. Next year is going to be so much more dynamic, all this air energy, these squares. And I think this square between Saturn and Uranus it's like this battle between the old and the new. Security, very valid need. Revolution, very important. So yeah, I'm feeling like if we can hold that North Node in Gemini, like we all have a truth and it's valid, we can do the evolution, move forward without too much of a battle. But I think that square I think in its used in its best way, can be a lot of creativity around social change. So to summarize, next year is very dynamic compared to this year. A lot of movement. I would say like community is going to be really important. Finding your people who you can rethink how society structures itself. Tapping into our creative energies for the first half, possibly feeling very disillusioned, confused, quite confusing energy coming through with that Neptune squaring the nodes. And this like airy, dynamic energy where we're all just going to want to connect with each other again after being in our caves this year. Okay, so I think that's probably quite enough information. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. I'd love to hear from you. You do? Thanks, Horse Hospital, for having me.
Hi, thank you so much, Flo. That was amazing. I'm going to do this for the Instagram people. Hi. Oh, that was so fantastic. I have so many things to say. I hope some other people have some questions. Please do write in some questions for Flo, so we can ask about what's happening. This is so exciting. This shift from this massive great conjunction from Earth to air is huge, isn't it? I mean, I know you've just talked about this like quite a bit, but I want more. Because I'd love to learn more about, like, because I know that Earth is kind of being very grounded, and the air kind of opens things up quite a lot, but I really don't know in huge detail what that means in terms of like the change that we can expect. And as I know you've already touched on this a bit, but like in terms of like the comparison of like what have we been feeling so much with Earth over the last period of time, that
100 years.
Yeah. Long time.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, the thing with astrology is we are co-creating this energy all the time. It's like as above, so within, so without. It's like nothing is defined. So it's kind of up to us how this energy plays out. I would say, looking back over the last 200 years of these Earth conjunctions, it's like it hasn't been a great time for the Earth. I'm like, we have not used that connection well. There's been like a plundering of the Earth in the last 200 years. There's a kind of like maybe a fixation which hasn't been that healthy. So I'm hoping that, like, firstly, our connection to Earth as well can become less obsessive, or you know, the thing with the archetypes, right? Like air also has a shadow side. So going into this air period, the shadow of that could be massive dissociation, like total disconnect from the material realm, scattered thinking, so sci-fi that we like subtract ourselves from reality. I mean, who knows, but like,
wow.
But I think it will. It's in its height, yeah, like I said, and I feel like to collaborate with this energy in the best way. It's like really thinking, how do we use our words and communication in the highest way, because it's air is this transmission, it's the space in between. So how do we connect? I mean, I think the way we connect virtual reality, like, it's going to be like beyond what we can imagine right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. I hope it will all be. I hope there'll be a lot of good things that come from it. As James Simpson has just commented, saying the big change can only be good news. I agree, James.
I mean, after this year, we really need some good energy, and I feel that coming in. But it's like there's always yin and yang, right? There is no golden age, and it's kind of, it depends on our awareness and how we work with the energies. So, I mean, if the aliens come in, how are we going to greet them?
Are they already here?
Oh yeah, they're probably already here, but I feel
no, I totally get your point. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I mean, they're very well, they are, but I think that with this space quality, it's like that arena is going to be very much on the agenda. And yeah, I hope, like, we don't just transplant our colonizing impulse from the Earth to space.
Yeah,
that would be a shame. So yeah, it could go anyway, but space is the place.
That's so exciting. Thanks so much, Flo. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I don't think we've had any questions through. So yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Good luck with your exam. Enjoy.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.